Hello and welcome. Welcome to everyone back to Hopkinton, New Hampshire, and where my house is, and Concord, New Hampshire, where Lindley's house is. And we're here to have another fireside chat. We were talking about how the temperature is rising and rising, and the fireside seems a little out of date now. So we'll be switching over to patio chats soon, I'm sure. Before we begin tonight's program, I want to just say a quick thank you to our wonderful PFA volunteers. Their kindness in recognizing our faculty and staff with a special appreciation dinner was so thoughtful. They provided a takeout dinner for each member of the faculty and staff. And it was especially nice because it supported Celebrations Catering in Manchester, which is the school's caterer and is owned by an alum, Fred Manheck. So thanks so much for that. And thanks for all the things the PFA does to make Derryfield's life so much better. So thank you all. So tonight we are looking to next year, and we want to share a little bit of our preliminary planning with you to give you a sense of what our vision is. Our commitment for next year is the same as it always is, really, to provide a top-notch education and also keep kids safe and healthy. We have such a commitment to planning that even though we know that at any moment the governor may override all of our plans, we feel that so much of why Derryfield is so successful in implementing change and innovation is because we envision and then we plan. And so we're going to follow through with that. So I'm going to give you a little glimpse into our method. About 4 weeks ago, when our administrative leadership team felt like we had this school year well in hand, we turned our attention to next year. And we broke up into 10 research teams, and each of those teams handled an aspect of either teaching and learning or operations. And with the goal of coming up with a research memo that then fed into an effort by a small group of us to design a vision for next year. We also contracted with some consultants at a company called Fusion Cell, and the consultants then provided the medical and health and public policy expertise that we really needed. And so then we partnered with them to develop the vision even more. So the two consultants we worked with were Mike Hirschorn and Jimmy Adelani. And I'm going to read a little bit right now about their bios to you. Mike Hirschorn is an award-winning Air Force public health officer with over 10 years of experience in leading teams, devising strategy, and overseeing operations for compliance programs, occupational and environmental health programs, OSHA compliance and health protection policy, and infectious disease control. With a certification in public health as well as an educational background in pharmaceutical sciences, Mike holds a graduate certificate in biostatistics and a Master of Public Health in epidemiology. Early in his Air Force career, Mike was tasked with developing a base level, so Air Force base level disease containment plan, and that was eventually adopted as the doctrine and used as the template across the entire Air Force. Currently, he's laying out procedures for pandemic operations across multiple branches of the services, as well as working with FEMA, state officials, and dual status National Guard commanders to ensure implementation in 12 states. Jimmy Adelani is an award-winning Air Force public health officer with over 10 years of combined service in active duty and Texas Air Force National Guard. In this capacity, she oversees the execution of a variety of health programs to include communicable disease prevention, occupational health, occupational safety compliance, environmental health, and food safety. Jimmy is a certified international health specialist who holds a bachelor's degree in biology and a master's degree in public health with a focus on epidemiology. As the sole public health expert responsible for the health and wellness of 150 Air Force personnel and their families, she developed and exercised plans to ensure personal protection and mission continuation in the event of pandemics or disease outbreaks. In 2012, while deployed to the United Arab Emirates and Djibouti as the medical intelligence officer, she consulted with local health authorities to create blueprints for the establishment of emergency preparedness and response programs. So Jimmy and Mike's backgrounds are obviously such an immense strength. There's nowhere in the world really where there's as much practical experience in virus control and pandemic operations than the US military. And then on top of it, they're both parents of school-age children. So they were really terrific guides in our planning. So what are we planning for the 2021 school year? Well, we're planning at this time a full move back to campus in the fall. And here are some of the reasons that Jimmy and Mike, our expert consultants, believe that Derryfield's whole student body will be able to be on campus safely. First, we have a small student body, which is a big advantage in social distancing. Second, the space that we have on our campus, both inside and outside, is immense compared to the size of the student body. We have so much square footage per student when you consider the new Athletic and Wellness Center, the new Science and Innovation Center, and the auditorium, as well as a campus that has over 90 acres of land. Then there's the type of students we have: bright, motivated, well-behaved. We trust them every day. There are no hall passes at Derryfield, as you know, and they're practiced in community-oriented behavior. So we know that once they're trained, they'll be ready to keep each other safe. Then there's the type of families that we attract. Families choose Derryfield for the community, and we have a high confidence in our parents stepping up to be our partners, sharing responsibility for community health. And then in addition, we're going to provide a great off-campus educational option. The virtual learning that we've experienced this spring at Derryfield will only be improved and offered as an option for a student who needs to stay home, a symptomatic student, or a student who has pre-existing health conditions or has a family member with them that might preclude them from coming to campus. So if a student does develop symptoms, that student won't fall behind academically because they can go to school online. The consultants advise that keeping COVID-19 out of our community isn't Derryfield School's sole responsibility, but rather it's a dual responsibility and a community effort. And we have every confidence that our wonderful students, our wonderful parents, and our faculty and staff will work together to keep us all healthy and keep us at school. I'm so glad in this moment that we are not a boarding school, because residential programs have such a higher risk for infection. And then we're also so fortunate to have the square footage we have, but the small student body as compared to our friends in the public schools. So Derryfield is really so fortunate in this situation. So Lindley, let's talk about transitioning back to campus.
First of all, I'm so excited to think about being back on campus. And as we make that transition, we know that we'll be teaching both on campus and virtually, because we'll have students who are having different experiences. Some students will be learning from home because of health reasons or because of visas. Some students will be really eager to get back to campus, and we think that's where most of our families are going to want to be and be ready to be. And then some faculty and staff will have to be home for different reasons, often for medical reasons. As we make this transition, we'll follow the same process that we did this spring, where we'll come up with the best design, we'll implement, we'll get feedback to see how things are going, and then we'll make adjustments. And as you know, as we did this spring, we surveyed faculty and students and parents, I think at least 3 times, and then made changes accordingly to make sure that everything was working well. So as we move into the fall, we're so practiced now in this process. And as we learn to implement the new protocols, the new health protocols that will include all kinds of cleaning practices and space use, new practices and patterns of action, we'll be building in time to do surveys and to adjust as we need.
So let's take a moment to talk about one possible but not definite scenario. We need to be nimble, but we are also looking at one possibility as a scenario at this moment, but it definitely could change. But what we're envisioning at this moment is that staff who will do this in waves or in phases. So first, in say July, staff who would work in the summer at Derryfield anyway would have the choice of working remotely or working on campus. And those staff who are coming into, say, the offices in Gateway will help the buildings and grounds staff learn about sort of cleaning schedules, help IT adjust. Then all the staff would say return in the beginning of August to campus. And then again, there'll be this moment of getting the kinks out, learning and adjusting, health monitoring practices, et cetera. And then the faculty would come back to campus. And then we'd work on the students. So in that next phase, we'd have the oldest students, let's say, in each division, our leaders. So our 8th graders, the leaders of the middle school, and our 12th graders, the leaders of the upper school. And so they come and say they're here on campus for a couple of days. And during that couple of days, we're learning how to implement the health procedures, as you were talking about, Lynn. And we're, again, buildings and ground staff is figuring out what doors are working and what aren't. And we're all learning together and getting lots of feedback from our students and adjusting and improving. Then we would invite the 10th and 11th graders, say, and the 7th graders to campus. And then we practice with them. And when I say practice, they'll really be in class, they'll really be learning, but we'll also all be learning about how to function with teaching and learning 6 feet apart, and then putting masks on and traveling down hallways in between. And then finally, we'd have the 9th graders and the 6th graders, those classes that tend to have the most new students. So we'd be the most on top of our game by the time that they come as well. But again, we know we'll be learning all the way along as we go. In order to have students sitting 6 feet apart in a class, it means that a large class may have to be split between 2 locations or take place in the Athletics and Wellness Center. However, we've been advised by our consultants and our Director of Buildings and Grounds, Alex Vasquez, that actually the majority of our classes would not be in that situation. The majority, thank goodness, because of our small class sizes, will fit in their classrooms spaced. So we need our families to be ready to be back August 17th for preseason, which will happen in some version, preseason sports in the upper school, and also potentially to start school. We'll have more details on the timeline, though, as the summer progresses. We'll also be having retreats so that kids get to know each other, and actually, hopefully, new parents get to know each other. And we'll be keeping a special eye out to integrate new students and new parents into our community, as we always do, in helping them to make friends. So
Mary, as you're describing all these wonderful steps, I'm wondering what, as a parent, I can do to help with this transition.
Sure. Well, this isn't exactly set yet, but it's highly likely that we'll be calling upon you, Lindley, when your child awakes. And that child will be a senior, I believe.
Which means sometimes needs an extra little nudge.
An extra nudge. You may be taking your child's temperature and asking Christopher a few questions, and then filling out a health survey that would be on an app on your phone. And this would be to screen for symptoms of illness. And if Christopher has an illness, then he would have virtual Derryfield for the day, or for a couple of days, or potentially if he has COVID, a long time, rather than coming into school. And this is in order to support our consultant's health strategy. And the way the health strategy works is that by screening at home, we keep symptomatic kids off campus, and adults, faculty and staff will be doing the same thing. And that's done via temperature taking and via the screening survey. And then once people arrive at school on campus, in order to protect us against anyone who may be asymptomatic but have COVID, Will be physical distancing, keeping 6 feet apart, and where that's not possible, wearing masks, like as we pass each other in hallways, and learning to wipe down surfaces frequently, and also to get plenty of fresh air in our buildings. This is definitely going to be the year of wearing layers, because fresh air is a great way to move the air around. So as a parent, Lynn, who wants to support the school, this summer you can support the school by making sure to buy a reasonable thermometer, and also making sure that there's a mask for your child to be comfortable in coming to school. And we'll have more details on this, but basically a 2-layer fabric mask is usually fine. This fall, you can support the school by reminding your child to follow those school health protocols and really sort of backing up the faculty in that way.
Excellent. I'm sure more information about this will evolve, but I'm curious about how transportation will work.
Sure. So we're going to be running our buses, and we'll be keeping them very, very clean. And students will wear masks on the buses, and spaced as much as possible. But again, if you can't guarantee being quite distant, you need to keep a mask on. And this summer, we'll be designing the drop-off and the pickup protocols.
Excellent, excellent. And what about lunch?
So
Lunch is always important.
So important. I have one sibling who I think spent most of the year thinking about lunch, and for him to know that lunch is definitely happening, and he would not have to bring a brown bag from home, would be very important to him. So we will have lunch to buy. We're not sure what type yet. We're not sure if it's a box lunch yet, but students will likely be dining in their classrooms, and we won't be having self-serve for health precautions. So Lindley, can you talk a little bit about how we're going to adapt extracurricular experiences that the kids are so passionate about?
Absolutely. As you know, this spring, one of the things that we learned from the surveys from our parents is just how important all of those community touch points are. And two times that students really are important to students in a week are community meeting as well as advisory. So we were able to keep those programs going this spring. And as we move back to school in the fall, we'll be reinstituting those as well. We'll also be looking to reintegrate our exploration courses and our activities and our LEAD programs, all of which we know are so important for that sense of well-being and connection that is so as vital as the academic programs that students experience. In fact, I was just talking with several exploration teachers over the last few days, and they were talking about how they're reaching out, for example, to Harvard Model UN to see what their plans are for January. And they're already beginning to devise ways that they'll do Harvard Model UN as an exploration course if in fact we're both online and face-to-face on campus.
Sure. So a parent hearing this might think that we would be having community meeting in the fall in the auditorium with all the kids sitting next to each other, but that wouldn't be the case.
That would not be the case. Well, we've already developed this fantastic new mode this spring, and we'll be continuing to offer community meetings virtually online.
That's true. So tell us a little bit about the arts, Lindley. So many kids just live for Derryfield arts.
They have been fantastic. So we're still learning the guidelines, and what we'll continue to do is we'll continue to find ways for arts groups to meet responsibly and safely. So in the fall, if we find that students need to do some kind of performance online, we'll pivot just as we did this spring. For example, when the Upper School Musical put their heads together this spring, they decided to redesign the radio hour, War of the Worlds, in a modern day setting, and they performed it in an hour-long podcast that they both rewrote and then performed. So as we move back to the fall, we'll be looking to those critical moments that our students always look forward to, like the middle school musical and the upper school musical and the play, and working with them to devise new ways for them to come together in community arts. Okay. We also know that the visual arts often translate more readily or more easily. And so programs like the digital photography program or the graphic arts program already are finding ways to thrive in both face-to-face and virtual. We'll also be working with others, for example, painting teachers and ceramics teachers, to find new ways that students can enjoy those art forms as well. And I wanted to share with you a comment that Marcy Roberts shared with us about her experience of taking painting online this spring. She said, "What a unique experience it has been, being far from the usual hands-on, music-filled, chatting, washing brushes and squirting paint on paper plates and sharing our work classroom. We've transitioned all of those things to each of our private studio formats. We can still share, laugh, listen to music, laugh more, and paint." So I know that our creative arts teachers will continue to creatively find ways to express the arts in whatever form we happen to be in. Mary, what are you hearing is going to happen in athletics?
So about a week ago, I think, the governor started to allow that small groups of athletes, of young athletes, say groups of 9 or so, could start to train with coaches. And so that we know it at baseline that we'll start out the fall doing skills and drills in small groups like that, unless that order is rescinded. And then we plan to transition to full athletics when it's safe to do so.
Excellent, excellent.
So let's talk a little bit about teaching and learning in the structure, our favorite thing to talk about, Lindley.
Absolutely. So we will continue to build on our tremendous successes of this year. We had so many exciting new programs that were launched in this year, and then we took those online. And as we've worked with faculty this spring and they begin to anticipate the fall, what I'm hearing from them over and over again is they can't wait to take all the things they've learned to the next step. So this summer, what they'll be doing is they'll have a variety of professional development choices. We'll be partnering with 2 outstanding leaders in the field of online and blended learning, Oasis and Malone. As many of you know, Malone has been our partner for a decade in developing online classes in our community. They were one of the first groups to really pioneer face-to-face as well as online learning experiences. And our teachers are so excited because through Malone, they'll have the opportunity to work with teachers who have been teaching this way for many years to learn new tools to use, like new ways to do screencasting or to do whiteboarding, or how do you make online discussions feel more connected, and what are those moments that you take, you use synchronous interactive learning in a class to really advance the learning that's happening. They'll also be able to choose from Oasis, which is a really interesting program that offers teachers a number of pathways, each of which builds very readily on the work that we've been doing over the last few years. So teachers could choose a pathway in project-based learning, or they could choose a pathway in competency-based education or standards-based grading, both tools that really help them find ways to check in with the individual progress and understanding of students. Or they could work on things like argument and critical thinking. But our teachers are excited about the Oasis pathways because it will allow them to develop national cohorts working with a mentor, and they'll be able to bring that learning into their work throughout the year next year.
Really, it sounds like, this spring and into next fall, that while the structure and the unexpected nature of the structure of school changing was definitely a challenge, it really accelerated the direction that faculty were developing anyway as faculty. Is that what you'd say, Lind?
That's true. That's true. All of the tools that they learned this spring online are now all these new tools in their toolbox to find new ways to advance the kind of customized teaching and learning that we've been doing.
That's excellent. So I'm going to just take a moment and get my glasses on so I can see the chat, because it looks like we have at least one question, which is quite a thrill for us because often no one asks us any questions. Oh, great question from Garrett 80. Do we anticipate that international students will be back in the same numbers? So we actually have a call tomorrow morning or another chat tomorrow morning with international families. And so we'll know more about their plans then. But part of the reason that we're going to be offering virtual Derryfield all of next year is so that if international students have trouble getting visas to come to the United States, they can take their classes with everybody else and not be behind at all. And then when they can hop in, they'll hop in and join us. Lindley, do you have anything else to say about that? And I'll look at our other questions.
Just to say that our international students who returned this spring have just done such an amazing job of staying connected with their teachers. They've really continued to reach out and be part of the community. So I think we're all feeling really optimistic about that transition in the fall. There's another question here that says, will the leaders come back prior to the beginning of school, or will this happen during the first days of school?
So I think she might mean the student leaders. And one of our hopes is that actually a few of the student leaders, perhaps student council, might come back early, and then they can really help to be trained and lead the rest of the student body in the new protocols. So that's a possibility. Another question here is, will the children have to present the passport screener on their phone to gain entrance to the school? So we're so fortunate in that the health system that we already have that processes students' physicians' health forms and other information, that actually now has added capacity so that we can put a screening survey in it with the child's temperature. And the beauty of that is that then that enables Derryfield staff back at campus to pull up a report and see which children are having what results in the survey and see if there's anybody who forgot. And if there's a family that forgot to screen, say at home, then that child would be asked those same survey questions and have their temperature taken when they arrive at school. And of course, if the screening resulted in concerning symptoms, then that child would stay home. Then contract tracing. So we will give you more information about that, but there's definitely a tracing strategy if a child is symptomatic at school, and we'll provide more detail for you this summer. In fact, one of the things that I'm going to request of everyone who's on this call and all parents, you've been so wonderful in filling out surveys. On Wednesday, you'll be getting a survey that will ask you a couple of questions. One of the questions will have to do with asking you other questions you have, so that we can make sure that we have a comprehensive, that we make sure we have all of those answered and that we can get that information to you this summer. But another question is, do you think that your child is likely to be using virtual Derryfield, or do you think your child is likely in the fall to be on campus? Because obviously knowing those numbers is really important for us. Let's see.
There's a question saying, I feel concerned about the effects of masks being used. So and I wonder if they're speaking about sports or just the social interactions.
Sure. So one of the things that we're going to be very mindful of, and of course the whole country is learning as we go, and we are right now thinking we're following the advice of our epidemiologists as we move forward, but we don't really know how things will unfold. That being said, our understanding is that if you can have the kids quite distanced in the classroom, then they wouldn't necessarily need their masks on. But if they're in the hallway where they're passing by each other 2 feet apart, then they would have them on. So I think that, I think considering that kids have gotten so accustomed to being in online classes to the point that 2 of my advisees commented that they were really sad that school was ending because they would miss seeing their friends and their teachers so much. I think if we can feel connected and close that way, we can certainly feel connected and close with a mask on if that's needed.
There's a question that says, is virtual Derryfield for a grade the same in class, or is it taught by different faculty? In other words, will students off campus be able to participate in class with those at Derryfield? And one of the reasons that I'm so excited for the professional development opportunities our teachers are going to have this summer is it's going to build on the skills they've already had, where they'll be developing lessons that will incorporate every child in their class, no matter where they are. So that student in China or that student who's learning from home will be involved in the same projects and lessons with students who are right there in the classroom with the teacher. You could imagine, for example, if we're in a bio class and students are doing a lab, you could have a number of students in the lab actually conducting the lab, while there are students online at home doing the data analysis, and there are others elsewhere doing different kinds of background research to understand what the next step would be. So students will be working in concert on the same projects, advancing their learning together.
So a question was, will staff be taking the temperature of kids as they arrive, or will it be the responsibility of parents, like an honor system? And yes, it will be an honor system, or that's the advice that we're getting from our experts. And so that's, again, we partner with parents now. We'll really be partnering when the fall starts. And then there's a question here about will there be a cascading schedule? That's definitely something that we're figuring out, because our schedule is going to be influenced by a number of factors, but one of those factors is having classrooms of the right size, or making a child's day work with the distancing in the classroom. So that's still up in the air.
We also have a number of questions, additional questions about the arts. Will choir, chorus be able to practice live? That will depend upon the guidelines as we move back into school. Right now, our teachers are devising lessons that would be able to go many ways. So if it's warm and it's spring and we can be outside, students could be practicing choir out of doors, socially distanced. If we are inside and we're following certain guidelines, then we'll be using different kinds of tech tools and online tools so that students can continue to do chorus. It will just be in a different format. And then there's a question too about instrumental ensemble. And currently the guidelines are saying that students can do percussion, and they can do string instruments. They can use a variety of other instruments. The one area of instruments that there's some caution around are wind instruments, for reasons we understand. So at this time, what we would be saying is that instrumental ensemble would likely not be practicing together unless they could be out of doors and doing it in different format.
So let's see, we have enough. I just learned that I have to dismiss these to see the ones at the bottom. Okay, here's another question. What does this mean for group spaces, and where can I go during free periods? Haven't figured that out yet, but that will be one of the things we'll be working on this summer for sure. And another question about the daily schedule, we're going to work on that as well. A question about tuition changes. We don't anticipate any tuition changes because actually the overhead of the school, the 75% of the school's budget is paying faculty and staff salaries and benefits, because there's it's such a high human being type of work that we're in. And so that doesn't hopefully change. And then running the costs of running school, they're actually all going to dramatically increase, because we'll be adding cameras, we'll be adding tremendous cleaning protocols, we'll have students home, students present. So that's the answer to that one. A question about offering academic classes over the summer. Lindley, do you want to comment on, was that considered?
Oh, yes. So this summer, Derryfield will continue to offer a number of opportunities. I think they're about to share the summer programming soon. We'll be offering some online classes. Teachers are devising things like a game simulation class. We'll be offering SAT prep. We'll be offering our really popular college essay writing class. And then I believe that DRT and a number of other programs are beginning to develop a new adaptation for the summer.
That's true. The DRT is on that, and Breakthrough will be operating online as well. So you can tell that it's interesting. There are so many things that we've alluded to that we'll be figuring out. And then a number of things that we do know the details for that will provide you in a more comprehensive way as time goes by. But I am reminded there's a Yiddish saying that man plans and God laughs. And so we are humble in our planning and realizing that if anybody had told us in January what we'd be planning in March, we wouldn't have believed it. So we recognize that for all of our plannings, reality may take different turns, or the governor may tell us something different about what we're permitted to do. But with that caveat, with that in mind, Lindley, what are you excited about for next year?
I am so excited about so many things. I can't wait to see all of our students back on campus. I can't wait to be back on campus with our colleagues because they are so invigorated by all the things that they've been learning that they can't wait to get back on campus and just take things to the next level. And then I'm really excited to walk in the front door and just be able to look at someone and send them a virtual hug and hello. How about you? What are you excited for?
I love in the fall anyway, seeing each student enter. That's just one of my favorite things. And, you would think that having been an educator so long, it would not be so wondrous to see how much older and more confident and taller students look in the fall. But somehow that always is a wonder. And I think it will be moving to see our students back again after so many months and so much taller, most of them much taller than I am. So a question is, do students pick to be at home or at school permanently or by day? So we will be, in order for teachers to be able to plan, it's definitely going to be stretches of time that a student commits to being either virtual Derryfield or on campus, but it isn't as though they have to book the whole year. It'll be probably, Lindley, what do you think? What would your answer be to that?
I think we are trying to find the balance between being responsive to the changes that families might be experiencing. Health always has to come first. But yes, I think our faculty and our students are going to be looking for kind of reliable cadences so that they know how they're going to interact and how they're going to follow up on their assignments and all of those things. So ideally, we would want a family to make a commitment so that we know where their child's going to be, and then we know that we would all be flexible if health issues arose. There's another question that says, will virtual students' start time be the same as students who choose to go back to campus? And the answer to that is yes. That's an easy one.
And a good question here, will there be any adjustment to the school hours in the fall, or are we likely to have the same scheduled hours? And I think we really don't know the answer to that one yet. I think that's going to be sort of dependent on how we can move students through space and give them all the great extracurriculars and exploration courses and things they want at the same time that we keep them apart and use the facilities we have. So that one, stay tuned.
And there's another question that says, is August 17th the first day of school and sports?
And I think the answer to that is yes. That
Yes.
would be the first. So if you're going away for the summer somewhere, hopefully to an isolated cabin where no one can make you sick, you come back, make sure you're home by August 17th.
And then it says, oops, gosh, it just jumped. How will we help new upperclassmen transition to new learning in a new school? And even though the mode might look a little bit different, we will still be holding retreats so that anyone who's new will have a nice structured process and a warm welcome so that as they begin their first day of school, they're feeling prepared. And Mary, if you don't mind, I'd love to just share our colleague Judy Reynolds captured the school's essence despite all of these changes with this wonderful comment. She says, Derryfield students and teachers are nimble and passionate about learning and teaching. Whether in person, through virtual learning, or through a hybrid of any two models, Derryfield will continue to deliver on what has defined its success thus far, keeping students at the center of our teaching model so that they can prosper and grow, and equally as important, so they can be heard, seen, understood, and valued. I think that is so true.
That is so true. And I think you can also see, I mean, we're sort of always like this, but we're even more like this right now, which is that we have a growth mindset. You know, we have this kind of fearlessness about innovating and knowing that we're not going to know all the answers, and we're going to plan as much as we can. We're going to go forward as knowledgeably and with excellence with our unbelievable colleagues who we have so much faith in. And then we'll be asking you all, we'll be asking our, you know, students, parents, faculty, staff, how are things going? What needs to change? How are things working? And then we'll adapt and adjust and get better. And that's really what great innovation looks like, not perfectionism, learning as we go. Great.
Well, I think I just wanted to let everyone know that as the summer progresses, we'll be in touch. So as Mary promised at the opening, as we learn more, we'll be reaching out to you, what then we'll be calling our patio chats. Right?
Yeah. And please help us out by filling out that survey on Wednesday. That will be such a help. And you don't have to know for sure if your child would be home or at school, but just that you're considering it. Like even knowing it's a maybe for you would be helpful. And again, give us lots of questions, because that will help us to think better and make sure to communicate really well. So thanks everyone for joining us tonight. And next time we see you, we'll have more information and more to share. Thanks, Lindley.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.